My name is Alex, and what I'm about to tell you will shock you to your core. I always thought family drama was just something you see in movies, but I had no idea the real drama was about to unfold right in my own home. You see, my father remarried recently, Linda, a woman much younger than him, a woman who wasn't even in her 30s yet. At first, I thought it was just another phase. Maybe it was. But things were never the same after they tied the knot. Our house became a place filled with unspoken tension. It wasn't the kind of tension you could touch or even point to. No, it was the kind that hung in the air, thick and heavy, leaving you with the sense that something was off, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it. Linda and I never really connected. I kept to myself, she kept to herself, and my dad was usually absent. It was an uneasy quiet, a calm before something I couldn't see, but I could feel. But everything changed the moment Linda caught me in the most vulnerable, humiliating situation, and that was just the beginning of a nightmare I could never have imagined. The next few days felt like a prison. Every step, every glance, every word, seemed to carry more weight than the last. What followed took us both down a dark, dangerous path, and neither of us would ever be the same again. I never thought it would happen like this. I was in my room, lost in my own world, trying to shut out everything around me, when the door creaked open. A chill ran down my spine. I froze. There she was, Linda. Standing in the doorway, staring at me. In that moment, my heart dropped into my stomach. The blood drained from my face, and my pulse raced as I realized what she had just walked in on. The worst possible situation, something I had always kept hidden, ashamed of. I could feel her eyes on me, burning through every ounce of my pride, every barrier I had put up. She didn't say anything at first. The silence between us was deafening. Time seemed to stretch on forever. I was trapped in that moment, unable to move, unable to speak. My mind was racing. What would she do? Would she expose me? Would she confront me? Or would she walk away, pretending it never happened? But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of shouting, instead of rushing out to tell my father, Linda just turned, walked out, and left me there, stunned, confused, caught in a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't understand. What was she thinking? Why didn't she say anything? Why did she leave? I couldn't process it. And I knew, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Days passed, but nothing felt the same. The house seemed quieter, almost too quiet, as if the walls were closing in on me. Every time I saw Linda, it was like she was a completely different person. I couldn't place it at first, maybe it was the way she looked at me, or maybe it was the absence of any words between us. Whatever it was, something had shifted, and I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was just a phase, that everything would go back to normal. But the tension was too thick to cut through. Every time she passed me in the hallway, I could feel her eyes on me, and yet she never spoke. It was as if we were both stuck in this silent agreement, an agreement that didn't need words but carried all the weight of something unsaid. She started avoiding me more, but somehow, I couldn't escape the feeling that she was always watching. At times, when I looked up, her gaze would meet mine, and there was a coldness in it. Not anger, not disgust, but something sharper. A look that made me feel exposed, like she knew things I hadn't even told myself yet. I tried to push it out of my mind, to tell myself it was just my guilt playing tricks on me, but the truth was I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. I couldn't erase the memory of her walking in on me. That was burned into my mind, replaying over and over, each time making me feel smaller, more exposed. My heart would race every time I saw her, as if waiting for her to say something, anything, to acknowledge what had happened. But then, one day, something even more unsettling happened. I was in the kitchen, lost in my thoughts, when Linda walked in. She didn't say anything. The silence between us felt like it stretched for miles, the weight of it pressing down on me. But then she looked at me, not in the way she had before, not with anger, not with disgust, but with something else. Something I couldn't quite place. Her eyes didn't flicker with judgment, but they weren't warm either. It was almost as if she were studying me, analyzing me in a way that made my skin crawl. There was no softness in her gaze, no pity, no sympathy. Just something cold and calculating. I froze. I didn't know what to do, what to say. I was caught between the urge to look away, to escape, and the strange pull to understand what she was thinking. Was she angry? Was she planning to tell my father? Or was she just letting me stew in my own guilt, silently waiting for me to break? It was then that I realized, she wasn't avoiding me out of anger or shame. She was avoiding me because she didn't need to say anything. Her silence was louder than any words could be. It was like she was giving me the space to feel the weight of my own guilt, allowing me to carry the burden without saying a word. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was going on, something I didn't understand. Was she looking at me differently because of what happened? Or was I just imagining it? My thoughts were a whirlwind, spinning out of control, as I tried to make sense of everything. But no matter how hard I tried, one question kept echoing in my mind: what did she want from me now? It started with small things. A glance here, a lingering touch there. At first, I brushed it off, told myself I was just imagining it. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more I realized something was changing between us. Every time Linda and I were alone together, the air felt different, charged with an energy I couldn't explain. It was like we were standing on the edge of something we both knew, but neither of us dared to speak it aloud. I'd find myself wondering if she noticed the way I couldn't look her in the eye anymore, or how I'd tense up when she walked into the room. But somehow, it was as if she was playing a game, one I didn't know the rules to. She'd find reasons to be near me, lingering in spaces we both used, striking up conversations that felt more personal than they should. At first, it was casual, light-hearted talk about nothing at all. But there was something in the way she looked at me, something that made my stomach twist in ways I couldn't ignore. She'd smile, that smile, soft but knowing. It was a smile that made my heart race, a smile that sent a wave of heat straight through me. And then she'd look away, as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't just my imagination anymore. Every glance, every touch, seemed loaded with meaning, like a secret we were both holding back. I couldn't help it. I was drawn to her, more than I wanted to admit. I couldn't stop thinking about how her lips curled when she spoke to me, how her eyes seemed to linger just a bit longer than necessary. It was wrong, so wrong, but every time she was near, that pull, that undeniable attraction, only grew stronger. I tried to stay away, to push it all out of my mind, but how could I when every moment with her felt like a tightrope walk between right and wrong? And with each passing day, it was getting harder and harder to ignore the tension building between us. Then, one night, everything changed. It wasn't planned, it just happened. We were alone in the living room, and for the first time, the tension between us became too much to bear. The silence was almost deafening, and every breath felt like a weight pressing down on me. She sat next to me, closer than she ever had before. Her presence was overwhelming, and I couldn't escape it. Her hand brushed against mine, and for a moment, everything froze. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a rush of heat spread through my body. I turned to look at her, and in that instant, I saw something in her eyes that I never expected: desire. It wasn't a fleeting glance. It wasn't confusion. It was pure, unmasked desire. And in that one moment, I couldn't breathe. Her touch lingered just long enough for me to realize she wasn't pulling away. Her smile, soft and knowing, seemed to challenge me, almost daring me to make a move. I couldn't look away. I wanted to pull back, to remind myself that this was wrong, so wrong. But the pull was too strong. Every part of me screamed to resist, but every part of me also screamed to let go. What was happening? Was this some twisted fantasy I was feeding into, something my mind had built up to cope with the madness? Or was it real? Was Linda actually starting to feel something for me, something more than the awkward tension and unspoken words? My thoughts were clouded, my mind racing with 100 conflicting emotions. I was terrified. Terrified of crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Terrified of what it meant for both of us. But I couldn't pull away. And for the first time, I realized, there was no turning back now. After that night, everything changed. The air between us was thick with something unspoken, and I couldn't escape it. The next day, Linda avoided me completely, like we were strangers. It was like nothing had happened, but everything had changed, and I was left standing in the aftermath, drowning in a sea of guilt and confusion. What did it all mean? Was it a mistake, a fleeting moment of weakness, or was there more to it? I couldn't stop thinking about her, the way she looked at me, the touch that lingered, the desire I had seen in her eyes. We had crossed a line, and now the weight of that moment was crushing me. I kept asking myself if I should tell my father, should I confess what happened? Should I admit everything, knowing it would tear the family apart? Or should I bury the shame deep inside and never speak of it again? The guilt gnawed at me constantly. Every time I looked at Linda, my heart raced and my stomach twisted. What if she regretted it? What if she was thinking about what happened the same way I was? Was she avoiding me because she felt ashamed of what we did, or was she terrified of what would happen next? I couldn't figure it out. Her behavior was erratic, unpredictable, and I was caught in the middle of it. She would act distant one moment, almost like a stranger, then the next, her eyes would linger on me like she was searching for something, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I kept wondering, was she as torn as I was? Or was I just another mistake, another fleeting desire she was trying to forget? Every step we took felt like a dangerous game, one neither of us knew how to play. And with each passing day, I could feel the consequences closing in on us, tightening like a noose. The silence between us became unbearable, and every glance, every word, felt like a confession we were both too scared to make. What happened between us that night is something neither of us will ever forget. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Because the truth is, we crossed a line, and now, there's no going back. It wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was the start of something much darker, something that would unravel everything we thought we knew about ourselves, about family, and about the boundaries we'd once respected. As I look back on that night, I realize we both made a choice. A choice that would change everything, and neither of us was ready for the consequences. But that night wasn't the end. It was just the start of a twisted game of lies, secrets, and forbidden attraction. What seemed like an innocent moment has now set a course that neither of us can control. And believe me when I tell you, things are only going to get worse from here. Stay tuned, because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew about this story. Secrets will be exposed. The truth will come out. And the fallout from that night will rip through every part of our lives, leaving no one untouched. What happens next? Well, you're going to have to find out. If you want to know what happens to Alex and Linda next, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Do you think Alex made a huge mistake? Or is it too late to stop what's already been set in motion? Let me know what you think, and don't forget to turn on notifications for the next chapter in this wild, emotional story. What would you have done if you were in Alex's shoes? Imagine the weight of that moment, the pull between guilt and desire, the confusion, and the fear of what comes next. Was this forbidden attraction inevitable, or was it just a one-time mistake? Could you resist the temptation, or would you have given in too? I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think Alex should do? Was he wrong, or is he trapped in something he can't control? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more shocking true stories. But trust me when I say, the twists in this story aren't over. If you think this is crazy, wait until you hear what happens when Alex and Linda's secret finally comes out, but who will be the first to find out? And what will the fallout be? You won't want to miss what's coming next.